Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart.
Hey guys, this is Pastor Jim Taylor of the Haven Baptist Church from sunny Kunsan in South Korea. And no doubt by now you've heard all about what's going on with David Platt, the senior pastor of McLean Bible Church in Northern Virginia. It's a mega church, but it's a mess. And I guess that means that you could call it a messa-church. Bad joke, I guess. Anyway, David Platt used to be he was the golden boy of the Southern Baptist Convention. In fact, he was the president of their mission board at one point. Now, I don't know if he is now or not. I think I do know. I think he's not doing that anymore. But anyway, he had quite a reputation. When he was younger, he used to preach against easy believism, nominal Christianity, was pretty strong on biblical leadership, warned against heresy, seemed to have a pretty big heart for missions. In fact, the Southern Baptist Convention made him the president of the International Mission Board. But recently, he walked away from that because he wanted to focus on pastoring his church. I guess it was about 2 or 3 years ago when he did that. Anyway, all things being equal, if I'd have known David Platt back then, I probably would have liked him. I mean, I'm not Southern Baptist, but I probably would have liked him at least a little bit more than I do now. In the last few years, he's changed. He started getting involved in, social issues and things of that nature. And his most recent thing is critical race theory. And, Platt was last seen telling his congregation members that if you're upset or you're thinking about breaking fellowship with other church members who are promoting working for or voting for the, pro-abortion Democratic Party, then maybe you should leave. And so he's taken a stand on those things. Recently, he wanted to appoint 3 new elders, and there were probably people that would have supported him in the direction he was trying to go with the church. But the church Constitution says that in order to promote new elders, there has to be a 75% agreement. So he couldn't get that. So basically, the vote failed. So Platt was upset about it, and so in a recent sermon after that, he accused people of voter fraud, driving in from other places, old members, so forth, being basically divisive. And then later, he had another vote, and then, the elders were narrowly appointed. And, of course, Pastor Platt, then he felt like he had won a victory, and I'm sure he felt like he was back in control of his church again. But the reality is, he hasn't been in control for a while. Some of the more conservative members of the church have been frustrated for a long time. In fact, they're frustrated because David Platt is taking the church in a new direction, and they don't like where it's going. And I'm sure there's probably other issues at stake, but mostly it seemed like that they were against the direction that he's taking the church with regards to, social issues and specifically critical race theory. And make no mistake, Pastor Platt is definitely pushing critical race theory in his church. Recently, he wrote a discipleship resource draft, which basically, divides your politics from your theology, which you should know by now. That's something that a Christian can't really do. You can't separate moral issues, especially when those issues are often political issues, like abortion or homosexuality or CRT or socialism, or you go on and on. There's going to be a theological disunity when you do that. So Platt's calling for peace and unity in his church, which really just doesn't exist. And it kind of reminds me of Jeremiah chapter 8. In Jeremiah chapter 8 verse 11, it says, "For they have healed the hurt of the daughter of my people slightly, saying, peace, peace, when there is no peace." And that's the situation. There's no peace there. But he's saying, oh, let's have peace. Anyway, his discipleship resource even further suggests that it's the duty of all white Christians to identify how they have become beneficiaries of a systemic racist system. McLean's co-founder, another guy whose name is Kelsey, when the whole George Floyd thing happened, he said, it kind of makes me want to go out and kill all the white people. Now, how am I supposed to feel like that being a white man? This is what his co-pastor said. Do these guys even understand what the teachings of Jesus are? So what's happened in all of this? Well, some of the conservative members of the church are actually taking them to court, and they want to sue them, specifically the church staff, for trying to change the Constitution from a secret ballot vote to a public ballot vote. Their point is they feel like if Pastor Platt knows who's voting against him, then there can be ostracization or maybe even some form of retribution toward those that are on the staff. His staff is huge, that don't feel the way he feels about things, and being pressured into voting Platt's way. And this is a big deal. Now, here am I in Korea, and I wouldn't know anything about it, except for this is all over the religious news sources recently. So let me tell you what I think is actually wrong with this whole picture, all right? Number one, domineering leadership. Even as an outsider, I can see where Platt is trying to lord over the people there. And I don't personally agree with his positions on social issues, but one thing is clear. According to the Bible, a pastor has to lead by example and not by domination. 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 1 through 3. The elders which are among you I exhort, who am also an elder and a witness of the sufferings of Christ, and also a partaker of the glory that shall be revealed. Feed the flock of God which is among you with what? The word of God. Not taking the oversight thereof, not by constraint, but willingly, not for filthy lucre, but a ready mind, neither as being lords over God's heritage, but being examples to the flock. Number two, I think he's lost focus on biblical truth, and he's moving into social issues. And I can't think of anything that will divide people any quicker than politics. And the fact is, in every church I've ever been in, there were people who were liberals and there were others who were conservatives. And the best thing for a pastor to do is to preach the word. That way, those who do have liberal leanings will learn what the Word of God says. They'll be challenged by the truth, and you'd be surprised at how much they will actually change, and that change will be in the heart. But if you allow politics inside your church, you're just begging for division. In my mind, in my opinion, church is the place where we talk about Jesus, not politics. A third thing that I think is wrong with their whole issue is that there's a lack of biblical government in the church, changing the rules without a church vote. Look, according to the scriptures, churches are run by what we call congregational rule. Now that means that church members vote to make decisions, and sometimes the pastor just doesn't get what he wants. I know because I'm a pastor. I know that happens. It's happened to me. And the church leadership cannot just change the church constitution so that they can have another vote so that they can get what they want. That's unethical. And any church leadership that does that doesn't deserve to be in a leadership position. Okay, so one more thing here. Big one. Going to law against the brothers. Look, I understand the frustration of the conservative people in the church. I would probably agree with them if I were there. I'm not. I would never be. But they don't like the way things are going. But the Bible is very specific on how we handle this. Taking people to court is not what we do. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 1 through 8 says this, Dare any of you, having a matter against another, go to law before the unjust and not before the saints? Do you not know that the saints shall judge the world? And if the world shall be judged by you, are ye unworthy to judge the smallest matters? Know ye not that we shall judge angels? How much more things that pertain to this life? If then ye have judgments of things pertaining to this life, set them to judge who are least esteemed in the church. I speak to your shame. Is it so that there is not a wise man among you? No, not one that shall be able to judge between his brethren. But brother goeth to law with brother, and that before the unbelievers. Now therefore there is utterly a fault among you, because ye go to law one with another. Why do ye not rather take wrong? Why do ye not rather suffer yourselves to be defrauded? Nay, ye do wrong and defraud, and that your brethren. Look, if you don't like the conditions of the church, get out. Now, I don't know if anybody noticed, but we have a big problem today with good churches that are leaving sound doctrine and they're moving toward the area of tickling ears with social issues, politics, sensationalistic, false doctrines, and you name it. Basically everything but the Word of God. David Platt is a part of that problem. In fact, he's a dangerous part of that problem because he had gathered himself quite a following in his earlier years, and now he's leading a lot of the younger generation who are very concerned about social issues, rightly so, and they're moving that away from Jesus and towards social issues which can never build their faith. That takes the Word of God. I've seen more than one church completely ruined by preachers who stopped preaching the Word and started espousing social causes. And quite frankly, sometimes their causes were even just. But the pulpit is where we preach the Word. We can preach politics anywhere else, but keep that out of the church. That's God's house. God says it ought to be a house of prayer, not a house of politics. Even if the preachers support all the right causes, church is about Jesus, the gospel, and discipleship. And David Platt lost sight of that. Now, if you like these videos that I'm doing, then do me a favor. Go ahead, go down, subscribe to our channel. That way, every time I release one, you'll get a notification, provided that you turn on notifications, and then you can stay on top of all the new videos that we release. And I try to release one video a week. Sometimes I get really energetic and I turn out two. Sometimes I'm busy and I don't even get one. But at least that way you'll know, right? Also, send me your questions, and I'll add them to my list, and at some point between now and the rapture, if it doesn't happen real soon, then we can get your questions answered. In the meantime, God bless you, and I hope that you'll continue walking in the reality of God's presence. And with that, have a great day.